All right, here we go. Hello, everybody. Crow here, coming back at you again from Vilebranch, only found on TitansLeague.org. And today, I'm going to go over the quick changes I made to the Arcane Mage tree in light of both Season of Destiny and the idea that the Arcane Mage fantasy is a bit more than manipulation of space and time. You see, I noticed there was a specific niche that mages have that aren't capitalized on, and they are your Frost and Fire Ward and your Mana Shield. Obviously, mages, especially in Dungeons and Dragons, have had access to magic that would prevent damage or mitigate effects when they occur. Arcane mages would be the most adept in this because they have the general speciality over most domains of magic. Everything a mage does comes from their connection to the arcane. Whether they're pulling fire or frost out of the twisting nether, they are manipulating the arcane in order to do so. So I made a few quick changes to reflect this. It's not too much more different than what we had before, but let's go ahead and check it out. Arcane stability will reduce the pushback on your arcane missiles and your mana bolt, your new spell that you use instead of arcane blast. It also increases your arcane hit chance by 10%. Arcane subtlety reduces the chance your helpful spells and damage over time effects will be dispelled by 30%. This also reduces the threat caused by arcane spells by half. I also put spell impact here, which increases the general damage of your arcane explosion, mana bolt, blast wave, fire blast, scorch, fireball, ice lance, and cone of cold spells. Arcane subtlety is pretty good because of a few changes I made to amplify and dampen magic. Specifically, through the talent Arcane Shielding, which increases only specific parts of those modifiers. It increases the healing given to you from Amplify magic, increases the spell damage mitigation from dampen magic by 50 or 100% respectively, so they become more useful as an arcane mage. You also notice here that it says damage over time effects. I'm pretty sure it's referring to Ignite. It makes these things harder to dispel. This will also make your mana shield and your wards harder to dispel. This is important because a big part of the Arcane Mage will be providing that utility and support through warding people. So, let's go on here. Commit to memory did not change. It prevents you from getting interrupted or silenced twice in a row within 20 seconds. Magic absorption increases your resistances by up to 20, and every time you fully resist a spell, fully, not partially, it will restore a percentage of your total mana. This could be 3 or 6%. Arcane concentration didn't really change. Arcane shielding. So, the changes to this are they reduce the mana cost of your mana shield by 2.5 or 5% of your maximum mana. This is because your mana shield will absorb damage equal to 10% of your maximum mana, plus 80% of your arcane spell damage, at the cost of 15% of your maximum mana. By putting points into arcane shielding, you can reduce this down to measly 10% of your total mana. It also means that you can increase the potency from 10% to 11 or 12%. Spell Drain is a new ability here. It intercepts and drains the magical energies of the next spell that hits a friendly target. This being yourself or an allied member of your party, somebody who's about to get hit with a big old wombo combo. It absorbs 100% of the damage dealt by the next harmful spell, but it will consume the buff once it's hit. It also prevents the application of harmful magical effects. Harmful magical effects here are literally any magical effect that does not deal direct damage. This includes damage over time effects, and also crowd control abilities like Polymorph. Damage absorbed by Spell Drain will cause the mage to regenerate 5% maximum mana. This only lasts for 2 seconds. It is a kind of a love letter to people who are quick on their feet, as an Arcane Mage should be, and kind of rewards you for thinking of different ways to use this. You can use this for like a 2-second Hand of Freedom. You could absorb a big Soulfire type spell that's going to come in and destroy your health bar. Or it could just be used to mitigate some damage. Crowd control, snares, etc. Be very deadly. If you're in like a 2v2 or a 3v3 situation, you throw this up, and somebody hits them with a fear right before hitting with damage. Someone else throwing damage at him. It'll eat the fear and get hit by the damage. It only lasts 2 seconds. Again, this is a very fleeting spell, and if you get hit with the damage first, it will consume the effect. Also, you only get the 5% mana if it consumes a direct damage spell. Any CC that's eaten by the spell does not give you mana at all. Arcane Fortitude did not change. It will increase your armor and the resistances from mage armor by a percentage. Epiphany is still here, because by default, Counterspell is a 4-second interrupt, but you can increase it to 6 or 8, along with adding a 2 or 4-second silencing effect to Counterspell. This also reduces the cooldown of Blink. I'm not sure what the default cooldown is. Looks like 25 seconds. By putting points into here, you can decrease it down to 20. Incantus Absorption was re-added because of the emphasis on absorption effects in the tree. If you absorb an effect, then you will gain additional spell damage in all of your spell schools. This includes Arcane, which influences the amount absorbed by Mana Barrier, which, makes it come full circle here. Arcane Meditation will increase your spell damage by 20% of your total intellect, and increases the amount of mana regeneration by 50% passively. This will put an emphasis on the Arcane Mage to stack both intellect and spirit, because it will allow the mana regeneration from that spirit to occur during the entire fight. Spell Power. This will increase the critical strike bonus of all of your spells, and your arcane spell critical strike chance by up to 10%. This allows you to crit and crit harder, especially with Arcane. Because it's locked behind Arcane Meditation, it takes 5 points really to get into the full effect of this. So I don't mind it being kind of powerful, especially because you only get 41 talent points, and putting 20 into Arcane means you only have 21 elsewhere. Frostbomb or Dragon's Breath. You wind up blocking yourself out of some of the abilities in the end of the other trees by doing this. Next, you have Arcane Power. That didn't change at all either. But we do have Arcane Stability now. And Arcane Stability will cause your Mana Bolt to have a 35, 70, or 100% chance to trigger the Arcane Instability effect, which by itself will do nothing. But when you hit 3 stacks, it will cause Arcane Instability. Arcane Instability can be consumed by one of 3 other abilities. Mana Shield, which will increase its total value, including your spell power coefficient, by 50%, turning it into a bigger shield. This means if you're actively dealing arcane damage with your Mana Bolt here in your rotation, you will also be able to have more empowered shields. But you have to be in combat, and you have to be causing this arcane instability. Additionally, there's an opportunity cost here, because Arcane Barrage will now chain to 4 separate targets, or you can kind of burst down a single target by using Arcane Missiles, which will trigger a very similar effect to like Missile Barrage, where it cuts the time in half and the trigger time in half, making it a big kind of bursty spell. Next is Mana Conduit. As a master of the arcane, you now passively pull mana out of the Twisting Nether, and you and your party members will regenerate up to 5% of your total mana every 10 seconds. Let's go ahead and put points into here, into here, into here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You also increase your passive spell haste by 10%, and if you don't move every 3 seconds, your evocation's cooldown gets reduced by 2 seconds. Because there's no talent for improved evocation, it is a 5-minute cooldown. But if you pop it and you don't move for a little while, if you notice down here, it's ticking faster off the cooldown. Every 3 seconds, you get minus 2 seconds. So you wind up making it come off of the cooldown faster, basically. Actually, I take that back. I must have messed up this tooltip, because what it's supposed to say is it's 1 second plus 1 additional second per rank. And so here at rank 5, it should be 6 seconds every 3 seconds. This may seem like a lot at first, but you slowly realize that it's still got a 3-minute cooldown, and we've been sitting here for like 30 seconds. It ticks fast, and the opportunity cost here is you have to be standing still to do that. And obviously, thinking about in a PvP scenario, you're not going to be standing still very much at all. You'll also not want to Pester, because Mana Bolt has a set amount of damage, a 2.5 second cast time, but deals additional damage for each percentage point of remaining mana in your mana pool. What this means is it deals a 50% additional damage when you're at 100% mana. 124. That feels like a lot, especially because of this mana coefficient here. But if you've noticed, it's also going down exponentially. The damage is being reduced. And the longer you fight, and the less mana you have, the less damage you'll be dealing. I'm probably going to tweak it a little later on, but if you take a look here, you'll also notice the aura of your arcane instability here. This is the arcane energy kind of coming off of you. If you're constantly costing your mana bolt, you'll see this quite often. This means you're ready to throw out an empowered spell, whether it's your empowered arcane missiles. I got to buff the arcane missiles, actually. I'm probably going to nerf the damage from Mana Bolt a little bit. It's a little too high, considering the increased amount of spell damage from Arcane Meditation. Let's see. Where is Mana? There's Mana Bear. Take a look at Arcane Barrage. It will deal damage to a lot of different targets when your Arcane Instability comes off. I like the way it looks. It feels very smooth. Oh yeah, look at that. That's what you do for AoE, for group pulls. Constantly throwing out your mana bolts, and then boom. Oh, didn't get it in time. That's okay. As you can see, the duration of your arcane stability is fairly short. This is also by intention, because you should be using it every time it's up. And if you don't, you get punished by not using it. You can't just have it from one pull to the other. Something else to note, Arcane Barrage was changed to not be on the global cooldown, and so you can weave it in between abilities fairly easily. But that also means you have to wait for your arcane instability to really show up. But once it does, then you can use it to empower the Arcane Barrage. You'll also notice here I'm out of mana, and that's also by design. If you're out of combat, or you're not moving a whole lot, you can evocate and get back fairly big chunks of your mana, and then wait out the cooldown. And if you're not moving, that will be fast, but if you are, then expect to be waiting quite a while. I also didn't think that you needed too much out of combat regeneration, because obviously mages already have the ability to produce water, and that just means you can drink water out of combat. Hasten didn't change either. That's still a thing. You can cause a 40% movement speed, melee speed, spellcasting speed, etc. on one single target for 7 seconds every minute. This also goes part and parcel with the idea that the Arcane Mage is a support class, or a spec, and that by doing this, you'll be very sought after for raid groups and dungeon content. And even in groups, PvP, it's very nice to have a shield mage or a ward mage kind of going around throwing up their mana shield as often as possible here. It does cost a lot of mana, though, so you're going to want a lot more mana regeneration. Honestly, you probably wind up looking like you're specking you're itemizing a priest or another type of healer that uses spirit, honestly. A lot of people have raised concerns about the survivability being a little too high. I think that's nonsense because I've casted a few shields here, and I'm noticing that my mana is shooting down fairly quickly, even with a 50% bonus. 12% of my total mana, well, 10% is 129. Add another 2%, that's like 24 more. So it's like 150. Plus 50% is like 200. And a lot of people could deal 200 damage in a couple attacks. I mean, even this Arcane Mage, about 2.5 of your mana bolts here at low mana will break through that shield. And it costs a fairly high chunk of your mana pool, even talented to do so. I also don't think this will be a problem because for other mages of Fire or Frost, because their mana regeneration is not as efficient as an Arcane Mage, and they will go very quickly. 15% of your mana is nothing to sniff at. That's 1/6 of your entire mana bar every time you use it. And the coefficient here, again, is arcane spell damage and your max mana pool. So, figured I'd bring that to your attention, guys. I hope you like what you see. Like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you can. If you don't, feel free to leave me some hate mail. I'll check it out. Some of my best ideas could be hate mail, whatever. Till next time, see you later, guys. See you later, see ya. See you later, see ya. Bye-bye. See ya.